Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast. My name is Amir. For today's episode, I have my friend Vonig joining us. It's been a really long time since Vonig's been on the podcast. So for those of you who have been watching all my videos, you guys should remember that Vonig has been on the podcast 3 to 4 times now at this point. So welcome back, Vonig.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So Vonig, I wanted to bring you on because you are my Houston Rockets correspondent. And right now, Summer League is taking place in Las Vegas. The Miami Heat are 4-0, one of the best teams in the Summer League and one of the best Summer League teams constructed by the Miami Heat. And we've had some good teams where we've had Orlando Robinson, our boy from Fresno State, who we could talk about as well because the Miami Heat waived him and the Rockets picked him up. Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, good players that helped us get to the finals and now have real NBA contracts. So we've had some good teams, but this one looks like the best and most competitive. And there's a few players I want to talk to you about specifically. One, of course, is Josh Christopher. So the Miami Heat have technically two two-way contracts available. So we have 14 roster spots, one available, but we're not going to sign anybody because we're $1 million from the second apron, and we don't want to go over the luxury second tax. And so we're not going to add a standard contract. We have one player, Drew Smith, who joined the Miami Heat last year from our G League team. He tore his ACL. He was our backup point guard. He tore his ACL like in Cleveland during a Cavs game. He slipped on a piece of paper or something like on the sideline and tore his ACL, which was insane. But he's not the most effective player. Didn't really get many minutes in the rotation last season, but he has a contract because Spo likes him for some reason, even though he got injured last year early. So there's three guys competing for two spots. All right. One is Josh Christopher, your boy, Keyshawn Johnson, and Isaiah Stevens. And so me and Heat Nation don't want Drew Smith to have that third. We want all three of these guys to get to two ways. So right now, I think it's Keyshawn has one, as well as Zion Pullen, who I think is not going to get one. But let me talk to you about Josh Christopher specifically. That's why I brought you on, because he was obviously drafted by the Houston Rockets 2 years ago. Do you remember what pick he was? He was in the first round, right? Late
20,
first round?
24.
24. Okay. See, this is why I bring Vonning on. He knows everything about the Houston Rockets. So I don't know why he doesn't have a podcast. Maybe one day when his kids get a little bit older. But so yeah, Josh, 2 years with the Houston Rockets, basically out of the league, and the Miami Heat picked him up apparently and put him in their pipeline back in May, actually. So like he got into Sioux Falls during the end of the regular season, and he's looking really good right now. So my question to you is just why did the Houston Rockets drop him? Was it because of your youthful talent in your pipeline, like Jalen, obviously, Cam, and a few other players like in that spot? Or was it character issues or like specific flaws that led them to drop him?
For sure, the biggest piece of the pie was the fact that we have so many young guys and not enough minutes to develop them all. Even now, I mean, our core is up to 7 basically players that are on rookie deals, and there was no way that Josh was going to be able to crack that rotation or be a higher potential prospect than those guys. On top of it too, I know when they got drafted, I mean, him and Jalen Green are like really, really close friends, grew up together. And I'm sure you remember the viral video that leaked of them in like high school. And I won't get into the details of what they were doing in that video, but I think that there was just a number of things there, and it just made sense for that trade that we did because we shipped him off to the Grizzlies. But he's definitely a spark plug player. And like I said, as far as him making it on the Rockets roster, it was a better opportunity for him to go to another franchise and try his luck there.
Yeah. So he's obviously gifted offensively. He's 6'5" shooting guard. Streaky, it seems like, in terms of his consistency when it comes to 3-point shooting, but he's capable and he can make some difficult shots, at least in summer league, from what I've seen this summer league season. So how is he defensively? Like, what are some of his other like skill sets that intrigued you when he was on the Rockets?
I mean, he's really athletic. I mean, his niche is he's a spark plug scorer. You know what I mean? Like he can get hot. And when he's hot, you think he's like the greatest NBA player ever, like that he has that level of just catching fire, like NBA Jam. But he's not always like that. So and he's very offensive minded. So I'm sure from a coach's standpoint, he's probably a difficult person to coach and restrain because he probably needs to come in and get his shots to get himself going, and that's not really playing as part of the offense. So he's got a little bit of that like J.R. Smith, like Dion Waiters type of vibe. He on a bad team, he could basically look like he's an all-star, but on a good team, he's barely gonna crack your rotation. And like I said, best case scenario for him is to be just a scorer off the bench.
Would you say he's a liability defensively, or is he like? Because I don't use steals as like the definitive metric of like being a good defensive player. Like again, not to throw your favorite player under the bus, James Harden, former Rocket, but like he was really good at steals, but no one would say he's like an amazing lockdown defender, right? There's a lot of guys who can get steals, but doesn't mean you're a good defender. He seems like he's been able to get a lot of steals because he's athletic, to your point, right? Like I didn't realize how athletic he was. So would you say he's like an average defender or like a plus defender? Like when he tries, like what's his motor like on the defensive end?
I would say probably somewhere just beneath average. I think it's probably an area of opportunity because, like I said, he's so offensive minded. And defense to me always just comes down to effort, right? Like that's one of those things where if you put your heart and your work ethic into it, like you can defend, right? But I think there's just a lot of players out there that just come into the league now and they know what they're good at, and they don't play both sides of the court.
Yeah. So, do you think it's worth it for the Miami Heat to give him one of those spots, a two-way deal? Do you think it's like a mistake if they let him go? Because one, I mean, he's not going to play unless there's like injuries. We know Spo doesn't really play a lot. He's not a rookie, but um, Spo doesn't really play a lot of young guys, especially when we're contending. But next season might be a interesting season where we still have Jimmy Butler and Bam and Tyler and Terry, but like we're adding Khalil Ware and Jaime and Jovic, and like we're in this blended kind of build, right? And this Jimmy, build has not necessarily worked. So um, I don't know like how well we're going to perform next season as a contender. Like we could be maybe, but probably not. So do you think it makes sense because we're one of the worst offensive teams in the NBA in terms of points per game, in terms of offensive rating? What you said, microwave spark plug. That's someone we could use in the regular season if there are injuries, right? If players are getting rest and we're playing against the Detroit Pistons, like maybe give him some time. Like, would it be a mistake, you think, if the Miami Heat don't keep him because of their inconsistency offensively as a team?
I think he deserves an opportunity. And then first, kudos on drafting Ware, man. He looks like he's the best big man, at least in summer league out of this draft. So good job there. Um, but I also like the fact that basically Orlando Robinson is on the Rockets summer league team, and you guys got Josh Christopher. I want the Rockets to keep Orlando. He's been awesome for us during summer league. But yeah, I think Josh deserves a chance. I think Miami's obviously shown the knack for being able to take these guys that don't perform well elsewhere, and then they turn them into stars and they get them paid. And then eventually, when they move on from the Heat, they are not the same player that they were.
Yeah.
So if Josh was going to thrive and succeed somewhere, it's like the perfect opportunity for him. And honestly, um, I mean, this probably would be one of his last opportunities, I'd imagine. He's one of those guys. He's too good for the G League, but like not great enough for the NBA. I mean, every time he gets his G League stints, he goes and he scores, 30 plus points, and he looks like he looks like the player that should be in the NBA. And then when he comes back on the 2A and he's on the NBA deal, you're kind of like, like I said, he gets one of his cold games, and you're like, he's not ready. So
Yeah.
he's kind of been bouncing back and forth and hasn't found the right home yet. So I think with the Heat, he should get a chance for sure.
Yeah, it's like Alondis Williams, the guy who had that insane dunk I sent you, the poster. He on the Miami Heat G League team averaged like 20 something points per game. I think he was like the number one scorer in G League last season, and he played like 95% of the season in Sioux Falls or whatever. Um, and he got called up because the Miami Heat were the fourth most injured team last season. So of course he had to come up, right? We were always hurt. And he played, I don't know how many games he played in the NBA, maybe 5, 7 games. And like to your point, he looked great there against that. He's like that similar type of guy. Like that when you say that he's too good for the G League, but when it comes to the league, he's not good enough because he's that type of guy too, where he's like athletic and a good scorer, right? Not like he's probably better than Josh on defense, I would say, or tries harder out in defense, but it doesn't always translate for some people, right? Like he didn't look horrible, but like he's less confident in the NBA, obviously, because it's a difficult league compared to the G League, right? So he's not scoring 25, he's scoring like 5 points, and you're like, I thought this guy's supposed to be a really good prospect, right? So I could see that happening with Josh, perhaps, but yeah, it's a two-way. It's not like a big commitment. It's not a standard contract. So I figured, why not take a stab at it? Because again, offense is something we really need. Defense is something what we have intact, right? So he's going to be less of a liability than I assume maybe a Terry Rozier or Tyler Hero, right? Like if you said he's like almost an average defender, he's more athletic than both those guys. He's bigger than both those guys, stronger than both those guys. Like it can't get much worse at that, guard position by having him in our rotation. Limited, you know, limited rotation, of course, because again, not a lot of the two-way guys are going to play unless there's injuries. Because the Miami Heat team is relatively deep. So let's talk about Orlando before we close out, though. So we're both Fresno boys, of course, so we have to root for Orlando. I was kind of upset that we let him go over Thomas Bryant because we didn't get many opportunities for him to play in the Heat rotation last season.
Yeah.
It was mostly Bam, it was Kevin Love, a little bit of Thomas Bryant. Orlando had some stints, but I don't know why we let him go. Like, but what are your thoughts on him? Like, do you think his game can translate outside of summer league? Because he did good in summer league last year for us too. You know what I mean? Like, this is his second year in summer league. He's an older player. He's 23. Like, of course, he should dominate to a certain degree. So, like, what are your thoughts like on his skill set translating like for the Rockets this season? Like, maybe as your third option off the bench.
Yeah, he'd be deep. He would probably get 0 minutes unless there was an injury up front. Because people got to remember too, we traded for Steven Adams last year. So
And
Steven Adams.
Sengun's what? Sengun's power forward then next to Adams.
I
What's your
don't.
depth
I
chart
don't
look
think
like?
I don't think they've made the call yet. I think possible that Adams is coming off the bench and he's number 2, and then we picked up Jock, so Jock's number 3. So he'd be buried. That's going to be hard for him to make the roster, but it just kind of depends on what they decide positionally for Sengun and what happens with Adams. But I think Adams probably will be off the bench, but we'll see. Orlando's looked great during summer league, like you said. I mean, at this point, he's got a lot of NBA games under his belt, and he's for summer league purposes, he's a veteran, so he should be coming in and doing what he's doing. And he's had some monster, 2010 double games. He's super talented offensively for his size. Can get the mid range. He again size wise, just at least all the the 4 games that I've watched so far for the Rockets Summer League, really done a great job dominating in the paint and rebounding and doing the dirty work. So like I said, I would put him based on. I know Jock Landale finished the season strong for the Rockets, but I wouldn't. I would put him in that mix. I think he could get some minutes there because Jock started. I mean, he was for half. Actually, I'd say probably like 3/4 of the league last year. He was he was pretty terrible until he got hot late. Basically, Sengun's injury late in the season gave Jock an opportunity to kind of change what his reputation had become for us, and we gave him a pretty sizable contract. So he was definitely not living up to it coming over from Phoenix.
What would you give him?
It was, I think, like 3 for 24.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say don't say 60. I was
No,
gonna say like you don't know what these contracts, right? Okay, 3 for. I mean,
no.
yeah, that's still sizable for someone that probably most NBA fans don't know who that is, right? I
Yeah.
only remembered him from the Suns, the Australian dude, right?
Correct. Which he's been
Yeah,
doing. He's doing good for the prep games for the Olympics for Australia. I saw some of his highlights. So, again, man, there's so many talented players out there. You can be talented in so many different leagues and
yeah,
different games and opportunities. And in the NBA, it's just completely different. You know what I mean? There's so many talented people that are not even in the league, right? They're playing overseas and elsewhere. It's just about the opportunity. It's about the role that you take on with the team, the minutes that you get. So.
yep. So, last question, I guess. I wanted to bring up Cam Whitmore, obviously, because he was passed upon many teams, supposed to be a lottery pick, and fake injury and motor and just character or whatever it was. He fell out of the top 5, 10, and I wanted to pick him. I don't know anything about college. So when I was watching the draft, they're like, this guy was supposed to be a lottery pick. I'm like, who cares? where the eight was Jaime was the 18th pick. I'm like, let's just pick him. He was supposed to be top 5 potentially. Like this guy's falling out because of a potential like or his defensive liability. I'm like, we're the Miami Heat. Like we're known for defense. Like let's figure it out. Put him in our system with Spo, Riley, whatever. And we passed upon him and we got Jaime, which was fine. That worked out for us. And he was a steal of the draft also, right? Third and rookie of the year, first team all NBA rookie team. We got Jaime, so that was a good pick. But what did you get Cam at? 19, 20?
20.
20. So these two are going to be kind of compared, right? To a certain degree. And both of them also, for some reason, played in the summer league, right? Jaime played 2 games. Cam played 1 or 2 with you guys too, as well.
Cam played 3.
3, okay. Played really well, dominated. I'm assuming, like Jaime.
Stellar first 2 games. His game 3 was atrocious. I think he was like 1 for 14 or something, ice cold.
Bust.
But
Okay,
it was but it was a back to
it was
back.
a bust. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, right, dude. No, he's not a bust. I promise you that.
Jaime played 2 games. He had 29 points the first game, and then 23 with like 7 assists, 7 like just pure domination. Like, and I'm part of the school of thought where it's like kind of why are you playing at that point? But then also I understand that like he wanted to assimilate with Ware and a few of the other players that got drafted. So he's like, all right, I'm going to play with these guys most likely off the bench, right? Him and Kalel and potentially Palel Larson from Arizona, our second round pick. So I get, and he's like, I'm going to be playing anyway, 5-on-5 during the summer. Like, I'm going to be doing something. Like, so it's only a couple games. So I get it. You know, like I was kind of, folks were just worried. Like, I don't want these guys who are playing for their lives to get an NBA contract, right? Diving for loose balls, playing aggressive could hurt him and take him out, right? So it's like, why is he out there? But um, let's talk about the comparison of the two. Do you think the Miami Heat made a bad decision? Do you think we missed out on Cam? Like, what's your thoughts on Cam and Jaime, like their ceilings essentially?
No, I don't think so. I don't think Miami made a bad decision. I think Jaime is going to have a great career. I think their ceilings are completely different. I think Jaime is going to be a great role player and potentially, be a starter on a good team, and he'll be in the league for a decade plus, and he'll be one of those guys. But I think Cam's ceiling is he's all star. So that's the difference. Did either team make a bad decision? No. And I think honestly, I don't even know if Jaquez is who he is if he doesn't get drafted by the Heat. I think again, perfect opportunity, perfect franchise for him to go in with somebody that has years of college under his belt and immediately start contributing. But Cam, dude, he's still 19 years old. He's younger than Reed Shepherd.
Wow, really?
This kid is, once he puts it all together, and offensively and his athleticism, obviously we've seen all that stuff, but he's got to get better is his b-ball IQ. He gets a little bit of tunnel vision still. He gets trigger happy. He doesn't make the right pass or the right play. Once that stuff comes together, man, I'm telling you, this guy, to me, obviously I see Jaylen Brown vibes. I think he can be that good.
He's 6'7", yeah. He's I forgot. I didn't realize how tall he was.
And he's got a nice shot, man. He can shoot from anywhere. Like he can get to the lane. Like I said, my ceiling for him is Jaylen Brown, and I obviously wouldn't say that for Jaquez, but Jaquez has the vibes of like being a power forward for the anchor for the Heat for the next 10 plus years.
Yeah, right. I see him. He's the Mexican Jimmy Butler, baby. Let's go. His favorite player, Jimmy Butler. He just needs to work on his shooting, which it looked better in the summer league. So he needs to increase his shooting percentage from 3. He needs to work on his defense. Obviously, he's not a bad defender, but I think he needs to improve there. His IQ is already there. Like he's obviously a smart, intelligent type of player, plays the right way, and yeah, who knows? I kind of agree with you on that. Like he could be a star. Like I don't know how we want to label this: superstar, all star, maybe kind of like a star is kind of like someone who's like the fringe of like a high level role player. Maybe we just call it a high level role player, kind of like a star in your role. Then you
Yeah,
have role player, then scrub. Like he could be a star in that sense, like not an all star, but like to your point, maybe like a perennial starter, like on good
dude.
teams at the small forward four.
Even in these drafts, man, it's so hard to find somebody that's a star like role player. You know what I mean? Like, look at
Right.
all these drafts, and like on the Rockets summer league, we have Kira Lewis, who was like
Who?
exactly right. He was like the 12th pick by the Pelicans like 2 seasons ago.
Oh,
And
really? Never
yeah,
heard of him.
you know what I mean? Like it's wild. Yeah, Patrick Baldwin, all these just guys that are like
Yeah.
first round picks. I mean, we're talking about Josh Christopher and like there's so many players that like we're talking about Josh Christopher, but there's so many that we don't even know their names and they fizzled and didn't even get out of their first or second year contract. So to get a Jaquez, that is like finding gold. You know what I mean? Like the Heat always do well, obviously.
Yeah, we haven't had a lottery pick or like a good lottery pick since Justice Winslow, and that was a bust. When we picked him 10th, because we had Bam. Bam was 14. Tyler Hero was like the 13th, or I always get them mixed up, but like that's the end of the lottery. And then we had Jovic 23rd, 20 or 25th or something, like, and then Jaquez 18th. So like all these are like later picks. And like look at Bam, look at Ty, like as much shit as we talked about Tyler Hero, it's just like his fit is with not the best fit with Jimmy. His role right now is probably better as a sixth man. Like he's still one of the best guys in his draft class. He's still averaging 20 points a game 3 years in a row. We're just being really tough on him, right? Like maybe in a fair and unfair way. But Bam, before we hop off, what did I say about Bam 7 years ago to you in our text message? Non-Heat fans over here, obviously wanting a Rockets fan. What did I say? He was going to be 7 years ago, and what's happening in front of our
Next
eyes?
next KG.
I did say this, right? Yeah, I have receipts. You heard me say this when he was a rookie, right? Before playing behind Whiteside, 9 minutes, 9 points a game, perhaps not even any touch. Like he was just in the dunker spot, like athletic lob threat, right? Like evolved every year to getting like he still doesn't have the greatest post game or hook shots, but still like that developed, and then he got to his mid range, and now he's hitting threes. Huge, right? Team USA, he's been playing really well next to Anthony Davis, and he's looking better than Embiid. I think people are realizing like, damn, Bam is like really important. Like you look at his name versus other guys out there, and you're like, oh, Bam's a scrub compared to these guys. But like, look what he does, like to make the game easier for other players, right? Offensively, defensively, he just plays the game right. And he's still young. He's 26, 27. Like he
Yep.
still has, a couple years to like develop. Like he's in his prime. He's in his absolute prime, and you can still get better when you're at the beginning of your prime, which is what Bam is, right? He's like a couple years into his prime, and he's only going to get better, especially if he's shooting 4 or 5 threes per game. Last season at All-Star break, he started shooting 1 to 2. He started shooting 1 to 2. He went on a streak where he made 10 threes like in a row, like 6 games in a row. He hit a three. Like he was never taking them, and now he's taking them, and he was shooting them at a high clip. And if he shoots 4 to 5 per game now, kind of like a Cat does, I think Cat probably takes more than that. But if you could shoot like 4 to 5, make 2 threes a game, like he can go from a 20-point scorer to like a 24-point scorer, and that's huge, right? Like so, it's all about confidence, and he has a good stroke. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, any thoughts on Bam before we hop off and Team USA?
Yeah, I agree. He's been doing great. He's a great fit. I think it gives him an opportunity in the spotlight to play with, the other greats of the league. He is definitely right now above a step above Embiid, just because I think Embiid's still the more talented player, but Embiid's injuries are
Mhm.
riddled him, man. I will see how he comes back, but it's pretty sad, at least how the last 6 months have gone for that guy. But yeah, Bam's like I said, and his range is expanding. You're seeing him hit some 3 pointers. I don't think you want him to be that guy. I think that's why I don't like Cat is so and even we're talking about Alexander Sarr, right? Because all these big guys that are coming in and they're playing like they think they're guards. It's like, dude, I don't need you jacking up threes. Now, if they're leaving you open and you actually can shoot a decent clip, like take the shot, right? But I don't know if I want my big man taking 5 to 10 3 pointers a game type of deal. I'd live with more like the 2 shots per game. He's too good and too valuable inside the paint to be playing out in that perimeter.
Yeah, it just depends, like, because we don't have a true point guard, so he does play a lot above the break at times, and like they've been sagging off of him. Especially last year was the first year he started shooting threes, so I think next year he'll still have an opportunity to get a lot of open threes. Hence why I think he should shoot more, versus being forced to take like the open corner three, which I think he'll do more of. He was shooting more threes from the top of the key because he was bringing the ball up. Right at times he plays point center, um, and they're just giving him like 3 feet of space. And he's like, of course I'm going to shoot that right at this point. So
Yeah.
It's kind of like his mid-range shot. You know, Brook Lopez a few playoffs ago dared him to shoot, right? And that's when we lost and basically got swept. I think it was the year after we went from the bubble. Uh, Bam, the next season, like worked his ass off, and now that's his like he's a mid-range king, right? That's like all he does now is the mid-range. We want him to dribble the ball more actually and take it more off the dribble. So I think next year will still be a good opportunity for him to put up maybe 3 or 4 threes per game because he's going to get the space. He doesn't have that respect yet until you earn it. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, thank you so much, Vonnie, for hopping on. Really appreciate it. I'm thinking maybe for fun, we'll have you on obviously next season when the Houston Rockets play the Heat. We could do some post game stuff. But I want to do a Fresno NBA player episode with you, obviously, because we're Fresno boys. So we could talk about the Lopez Bros, Orlando, Robinson. We could talk about Paul George. We could talk about Jalen Green, obviously, on your team. I think that'll be fun. Maybe we could do that during the offseason since in a few weeks after Summer League's over, the Miami Heat are going to have no new news because we have no opportunity to add any players and Summer League will be over. So maybe we could do something this offseason, while we have time off before the regular season starts. So thanks again for hopping on. Appreciate it.
Thanks.